Hey, I'm Jay, and you're listening to the More Than podcast. I'm a former Miss Arizona USA, professional model, confidence coach, and red carpet host. Don't let those titles fool you, though. I'm a 30-year-old, overly curious woman who loves to connect with others over the good, the bad, and the hilarious parts of our stories. From the outside looking in, my 20s looked really glamorous, but in reality, I struggled deeply with my confidence, self-worth, and mental health. I went on a deep healing journey to figure out how to live a life that felt as fulfilling as it looked, and now I help you do that too. I'm not afraid to go deep, and our guests aren't either. We talk all about mindset, mental health, confidence, relationships, beauty, boundaries, business, fashion, while giving you tangible tools for your own growth. This is one of those girl chats that leave you feeling inspired and empower you to stop settling and create a life you love. You're so much more than whatever's holding you back, and I'm so glad you're here.
So I struggled my entire life with my weight. I lost weight when I was like 20 years old. I became codependent with men and male validation. Beyond grateful for the experience because it led me to my therapist. She told me, she's like, I want you to go home this weekend and think about what is the common factor between a lot of these men that you've dated. Like I come back to her, I was like, I think I have your answer. And she's like, the common denominator is you.
Welcome back to the More Than podcast. This episode is going to be impactful for all of you, but I am especially excited for all of my ladies that are in the dating scene right now. Our guest has become a dating expert and content creator who's empowering women to never settle and to embrace this season of singleness. In this episode, Julia talks about her confidence journey and how she grew up equating her weight with her worth. She talks about the pressure she felt to settle for a guy who just checked the boxes and why she kept attracting toxic partners. She shares how therapy mixed with an eye-opening experience with plant medicine inspired her to work on her self-worth, which ultimately transformed her life and her dating life. Julia has embraced being 30 and single and now hosts the Pretty Much Done podcast, helping others navigate dating and building up confidence. She gives you ideas on how to slide into the DMs, how to make sure you vibe with someone online before the date, why to take yourself on solo dates, and her icks and green flags when it comes to dating. Please welcome my friend, Julia Mazur, to the More Than podcast. So I am a big believer that confidence impacts every single area of our lives, and it plays a huge influence in our dating and also in our relationships. I was listening to your first solo episode, and you talked all about your confidence journey, and you said something that really stuck with me about how confidence is that intangible thing that everybody wants but doesn't know how to get.
I said that?
Yes! Given this was like a year ago. Yeah. But hey, you had a lot of wise words in that episode. And I loved your confidence journey because I resonated so much with it. I know our listeners will resonate with it. So I want to start there. I want to talk to you about confidence, not only in dating, but also just being a woman.
Yeah.
So take me back to like early 20s.
Yeah.
What was your confidence like?
Zero, but I didn't realize it. I wasn't aware of it. So I struggled my entire life with my weight. I didn't win the genetic lottery when it comes to parents who had a decent weight. It was something that I just had to battle my entire life. I was never taught anything about food. At my heaviest weight, I was 208 pounds, and I lost weight when I was like 20 years old.
Okay.
But it was just like, I felt other. I don't know how it was for you in high school, but like I was the girl that people would tell me they have a crush on my friend. I was the funny girl, and I was the girl that everyone really liked and was like personality higher, but never someone that people had a crush on. I had a boyfriend for 4 years during high school through college who loved me as I was, like very wonderful person. I was always heavier set, but like I probably gained a lot of weight in that relationship. And so at my heaviest weight, I'm 208 pounds. I ended up studying abroad in Italy. I'm very mean, like typical college abroad, broke up with that boyfriend and was just like, I need to go set out on this journey for myself and figure out what it is I want out of life. It wasn't that conscious, but I feel like my gut and my intuition took me there. And I remember when I studied abroad in Rome was probably the first time where I felt a little hit of confidence, where I went to an environment, I didn't know anyone, and people were seeing me as I was and loving me as I was, despite being overweight. Like guys weren't like throwing themselves at me, but I felt like, okay, this is just this environment that I'm throwing myself in and people are seeing me. So
do you think that's because you had a different mindset? Or what do you think it was?
I think it was being in an environment, probably a new environment, and being myself and not having to put up a front and put up a facade. And I feel like that's like interwoven through my whole life. And when I got to Italy, like, I think it was just like walking more. I started to lose a little bit of weight, and I went on my journey of starting to lose weight. And then I came back to LA, and my sister and I decided we're going to get on this journey of becoming healthy and losing weight. And I ended up losing like 60 pounds. And yeah, and I then became, and this was something that was interwoven throughout my entire life, I then became desirable to men physically. And so I got this like taste of, okay, now I'm seeing what it feels like to be able to go. And this was also the days of Tinder had just started. So I get on Tinder and I start uploading photos of myself thinner, and I'm matching with people and I'm talking to people, and men are seeing me and valuing me, I thought, right? And so I get into a relationship with this guy, and because I had lost 60 pounds, I had a lot of excess skin. There were certain parts of my body that I wasn't comfortable with, but like I felt really good. I felt very strong. And I started dating this guy, and we were intimate, and not exactly after, but like after we had been intimate, he was like, I just don't like love the way your body looks. And
what?
Yeah.
He vocalized that to you?
Yes. I was 20, he was 28, and
his insecurity is so loud with that comment, but like that's detrimental.
So loud, but I was 20.
Oh, you had no idea.
No idea. And I think now I understand that we attract people like at the same level of trauma that we are. And I basically attracted a man who was only valuing me for all the things I had on paper, how I look, you know, my family, my social status, like the career that I had. And once he got proof that I was other, he's out, or like he wants to be out, you know, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And
not the right person for sure.
Not the right person.
But.
And I like wish I could go back when I was 20 and like have told him to fuck off. And like today I'll show people photos and they're just like, what? Like wild.
I can only imagine where he's at.
It would be an immediate swipe left today. Really, truly. But at the time, he was like a successful lawyer and owned a place and had
so on paper, he had the things.
Literally on paper, yeah. And that was a lot of what I was chasing, of that validation of someone who's good on paper finds you beautiful. And I think that maybe a lot of women can relate to like that's what happens in your 20s or early 20s. Mm-hmm. And so I spent a lot of my 20s instead of now using food to like fuel me and nourish me, I became codependent with men and male validation throughout all of my 20s, and finding myself in these very good on paper relationships. And I also, like, to back up, the reason why I was finding myself in these relationships is I had kind of the messaging growing up of, you're a woman, you should get married and have kids. And I'm a Jewish woman, and like in our culture, it's like, get married, have kids, become a doctor or a lawyer. That's like the life plan that you're kind of like given. That's the formula. And I was like, okay, like I pay attention. I'm very like, you know, rule follower. I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And so I had all these like mixed messages in my mind and started to just go on that path. And I would find myself in these good on paper relationships feeling very deeply unfulfilled. I was like, what? I feel like it's like a bottomless pit. I'm with these guys, but they're like, we're not like laughing the way I want to laugh. We're not connecting the way I want to connect. It feels surface. It feels shallow. And I just like stuck on that path. And then it wasn't until COVID, I got into a super toxic relationship. I got into like couples therapy with him, which is crazy in hindsight.
How long were you dating before you did that?
We were like 5 months in.
Wow, that's quick to go into couples therapy.
Really quick, super quick. But like beyond grateful for the experience because it led me to my therapist. We did like 3 sessions with the therapist, and I think, I don't know if this is ethical, but like I could see in her eyes, she's like, yeah, this is like not it. And I was like, oh, good. Someone to corroborate that this is not it.
So you dumped him, kept her.
Literally.
I like your style.
And I love her.
Good.
She's like my angel. And we started working, like I remember our first session together, I spoke to her, and I was like telling her about this battle I've been having with men, and she told me, she's like, I want you to go home this weekend and think about what is the common factor between a lot of these men that you've dated. Like, what is it? So I remember like going home and thinking about it, and I was like, I love guys with like sarcastic sense of humor, men who like sports. Like, what is it? And like, I come back to her, I was like, I think I have your answer. And she's like, the common denominator is you. You're choosing them. And I was like, well,
Hits you where it hurts.
like, you didn't have to go that hard, but okay.
She's like, I'm being paid to do this.
Yeah. I'm actually actively paying her to
exactly.
Tell me that. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, well, like, how do we fix this? And like, I went on this really intentional journey, and I realized that it was my self-worth that needed replenishing. Like, it was me who needed to kind of get on board. It wasn't these relationships. I was picking these people. Like, why was I picking these people? Why do I care that a guy owns a house and likes me? Like, what is the correlation there? And so I started to go on this really intentional journey, and like, I'm really grateful. I ended up like getting in a relationship at the time with someone who was very spiritual and deep and wise and wonderful. And like, we didn't work out, but he like healed me. Like, because of him, and like him being like a safe place for me to land, he taught me all the things that I was like able to start pursuing. And so I never thought I would say this, but like 3 years ago, if you told me like, Julia, you're going to do plant medicine and you're going to go on like 2 spiritual journeys, I'd be like, you're fucking with me. You are messing with me. But I went and I did plant medicine. And
okay, tell me all about that. What is that craziest, and what did you do?
Yeah. Have you ever done it?
No, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Well, we're in Austin, and like, I feel like there's a big community here of people. So like, people usually say ayahuasca, like that's the typical one that people do. I don't want to projectile vomit, and I that felt like advanced level to me.
And is that like marijuana?
That is like, it's these tribal medicines that people have started to now dabble in and go in these intentional settings and use, because like Aaron Rodgers went to Costa Rica and did ayahuasca, and he's spoken about it openly. It unlocks your subconscious. So like, we've got our conscious thoughts that are blocking, right? Like, I don't know, like I was driving over here today and I was like, oh, I'm kind of nervous. What's it going to be like? But like, that's my conscious thought. My subconscious is like, you've got this. Like, you know how to be on a podcast. You're a podcaster, you know? So my therapist like kind of introduced me to this community where this woman has like women's groups, and you all take a plant. I took a plant called Kana. It's like South African plant, and it's like a heart opener, and it like blocks stuff where you're like, we are just like blocking ourselves constantly with these conscious thoughts. And I went to this like journey, and they like really monitor you. It's not like we're going to get fucked up. Like, that's
you're not
what
like
it is.
in a
it's not a
field
rager.
getting fucked up.
Yeah,
okay.
It's not a rager. It's like, you go there for clarity, and like,
yeah.
my intention was, I want career clarity, because I was feeling very confused about my career.
Okay.
And that's like not what happened, but like, I got what I was meant to have.
What does the environment look like?
You're there, and it's like this woman's house, and she's 80 years old, and she's just wonderful. Like, I tell everyone what like a Nancy Meyers movie feels like is what she is.
Okay.
And
safe place.
She's barefoot. She has chickens. Like, it's so cute.
A vibe.
Yeah, a vibe. And yeah, you all like open up and say what brought you there, and then you take the medicine, and you can like go, there's like a fire outside, you can talk to people, have like very intentional conversations, and they dose you throughout the night. So they like monitor you to ensure that you're doing okay. Some people are like crying, everyone's having their journey.
Interesting.
Yeah. And at first I was like, this is not something that is me at all. But I do think that like getting ourselves out of our comfort zone is where the most of the change happens.
For sure.
And so I had like, my therapist had told me about it because she had done it, and she was like, you should do something called mirror work when you do this, and like look in the mirror and see what comes up. There's like a book called How to Change Your Mind, and like he says you shouldn't do mirror work. Like, they're varying, but whatever.
Just like everything, there's so many conflicting
Totally.
feedbacks.
When I say that to people, they're like, you did what? And I was like, yeah, I don't know. So I go, like I took my 3rd dose, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to go like peruse, whatever. I go to this bathroom, and I look in the mirror, and I look in the mirror. At the time, I've been blonde for 10 years. I recently dyed my hair back. I, obviously weighed like 138 pounds. Like I'm, myself at 29 years old. I look in the mirror and I see myself at 19 years old with dark brown hair, 208 pounds, crying, looking back at me and just sobbing. And I'm like, immediately I have to throw up. And I look back in the mirror and I'm like, she's crying. Like, what do I do? And I'm throwing up and I'm thinking and whatever. And like in my mind, like I think this whole experience was like a 45-minute ordeal, but like I'm just like trying to problem solve.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, like it clicked for me where in my life, it was like that version of myself that I saw in the mirror was the bad version. And the version that I became, the blonde girl who was thin and desired by men, was the good version. And I shut that version of myself down. I threw her in a drawer and I like closed it. And I didn't want anyone to unlock that version of myself. I didn't want anyone to know that version existed, especially because like men told me, I don't like the scars and the loose skin on your body that is from your previous life. So I had to literally look in the mirror and I had to tell her I loved her because that's me. Those parts of me are me, and like people shut them away and made them feel other or worse. And I look at her in the mirror and I'm telling her I love her and she smiles back at me. I'm not kidding.
I have full body chills. Oh my gosh.
I know. It's
what a beautiful experience.
Amazing. And I realized that like everything that I was throwing up was the toxicity and negativity I've ever told myself about my body and about myself, all the negative self-talk that I spoke about for like 10 years of my 20s. It was the only way I knew how to like communicate with myself. And so once I got that visual, like whenever I'm mean to myself, I'm not perfect. Like I'm certainly not perfect, but I remember that visual of that little girl. She was only 20 who wasn't loved. I'm like, I owe it to her. And so I just the next day, like I unfollowed like models that I compare myself to, like the Kardashians. Like there's so much that I was doing that was getting in the way of like just loving myself, which is so much easier than hating yourself, because I spent a lot of effort on that.
Mm-hmm. I could be like moved to tears right now. Like that's so beautiful. And I know a lot of people will do like inner child work where they think of themselves as a kid, but I think it's so beautiful that you're looking back within the last 10 years and seeing that version of yourself. I just did a Mindset Monday episode about the difference between confidence and self-worth. And when you were talking about it was your self-worth, because you were gaining confidence because of the outside validation and who you thought you needed to be. But the entire time you were always worthy. You were always good enough. It wasn't your weight didn't dictate your worth.
Totally.
But other people made you believe that. And so you started to believe that so deeply.
Yeah. And I think that the environments that we put ourselves in can exacerbate that. I am from LA. I was born and raised in LA. It was all about what you look like. I feel, even moving here to Austin, like I feel like my soul has I feel like a weight is lifted off my chest.
All right, so you leave that experience and you go back into normal life. Do you feel like you carried the lessons with you into that, or was it still an ongoing struggle?
It was an ongoing struggle, and I don't know. I mean, at that point, I'm like, okay, well, now I have a pact with myself that I can't hate myself anymore. And I went in with the career clarity, and I hadn't started my podcast yet. That was another aspect of me, and I'm sure a lot of women can relate to this too, where, okay, like our physicality is something that makes us feel beautiful, our beauty, our looks, whatever, all of that makes us feel valuable in society. Also now we have this pressure to become entrepreneurs, girl boss, all of that. And I had always been super accomplished in like school and my career. And the way that I was able to justify to my parents not becoming a lawyer was I got a really good job in tech out of grad school. And I, worked at Tinder where I got a lot of equity, and they like that, like satiated my parents, because they're like, okay, well, she's making a 6-figure salary in tech. Cool. She's good.
It's enough.
It's enough. And I, like after working at Tinder for 6 years, I worked at Spotify. Like my resume is impressive. My parents, they're the best and they're so supportive, but like there is the parent thing where it's like when they're at dinner parties and people are like, what does Julia do? She works at Spotify. That's cool. That's buzzy.
Yeah.
And was very wrapped into female tech girl boss. But deep down inside, I knew what I want to do. I didn't feel fulfilled at my day-to-day. I felt fulfilled talking to my girlfriends about their dating lives. I want to talk about my dating life with my friends. I want to talk about how humans connect. I want to understand the inner workings of how humans are. I don't want to necessarily live in LA. And so my first step there was a few months after doing the plant medicine journey. I was like, okay, I think it's time to start my podcast. Let's start it as like a hobby, a side hustle.
And you always wanted the podcast to be about dating?
Yeah, I think what I learned was in that toxic relationship in COVID, I leaned very heavily on podcasts. And it was also COVID, and a lot of people got very into podcasts during COVID. But I remember very vividly like having this experience when I was very confused about the relationship I was in, and people telling me like relationships are hard and it's okay. Like, he's really good on paper. You should stay with him. I was listening to, I don't know if you know who Mariana Hewitt is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was listening to Life with Mariana, and Jen Atkin was on. And Jen Atkin is like a celebrity hairstylist, and she was on, and she said, I tell all my girlfriends that a breakup is just one weekend. You move your stuff out. It's just one weekend, rip the Band-Aid off, and that's it. And I was like on this walk, and it like a little bubble bubbled into my head. I was like, okay, I feel like one weekend I can do that, because we were living together.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because it was COVID, and there were riots around where I lived, and he was like, you should just move in, and it got expedited super quick, all of it. I think COVID, that's what happened.
Yeah.
It either made or broke relationships.
Totally.
And so I was like, okay. And I wanted to kind of be that moment of clarity for someone else who was settling in any aspects of their lives. And so it started as, at first I started my podcast as a breakup podcast, and I was having people on to share their stories of breakups because I wanted to show people it will not kill you. A breakup will not kill you. People have survived them, and it's not the worst possible scenario. But I think what I really started to learn was I wanted to have people on to teach people how to get really in touch with what it is that they want, who they are, so that people would stop settling in so many aspects of their lives. Because I think that once you know exactly who it is that you are and the things that you want, you find that relationship. And there are some relationships, like I know you've been with your husband for a long time, and my best friend has been with her high school sweetheart, and I can't imagine her being with anyone else. But I think that once you hit a certain age, it's really hard to like grow with one another. It's like we've become very ourselves. And so now I know at this point in my life, like I want someone who values the same things in life that I do. Like a guy who's going to want to live in his hometown forever is not going to jive with a girl who like loves to live elsewhere and meet other people and travel a lot. And so I think that that's really important. It is to like understand what do you want out of life? What is it that you want? Is someone going to champion you when you have a career change at 30, you know? Mm-hmm. And so it's been super fulfilling. I love it. I love the people I meet. Everyone has like shown me that there are so many different ways of living life, and living life for societal expectations is no longer cutting it.
Preach. Preach. I feel like we were all given a blueprint about what we were supposed to do, and felt like we failed if we did that.
Yeah.
But I also know a lot of girlfriends that did do the blueprint because they thought that's what they needed to do. And now they're in their 30s and they're very unhappy and going through that transformation of trying to figure out who they are just a little bit later. That there's no right way.
Yes.
That I think we've all kind of been screwed by this idea that if we're not doing it the quote unquote right way, then we're going to be unhappy. Yeah. Or if we're alone, that means that you're unhappy.
Totally.
And I think people like you vocalizing like complete opposite. You're going to be way happier because you didn't settle for somebody. And so many people settle in relationships.
Yes.
I'm noticing that more and more and more. And I think a lot of it is because of that checkbox dating that you were talking about.
Yeah. And I think that like I can speak for the single experience. And I mean, women who get divorced, like I think it's an amazing thing. I have more respect for a woman who gets divorced than stays in an unhappy situation. There's no shame around divorce. But for the single experience, like not having that realization at 30, oh my God, what am I doing? When you're not married, you don't have to go through like a divorce, which is really expensive. Perhaps you have had children, then you have to figure that out and get back out there. Like me as a single woman, there's no easier thing than where I'm at right now. And sure, does it get lonely? Yeah, but like I know if I stay on the path, I'm making it easier for myself further down the line.
Mm-hmm. And you're continuing to choose yourself and somebody that enhances your life instead of molding yourself and changing yourself to fit who you think that you should be for the person that looks good on paper.
Yeah.
You know,
totally.
I think more and more women need to hear that just because he marks off 4 of your 5 boxes does not mean that he's it. Yeah. Even if he's really great and really nice and very sweet, if you don't have that feeling that you want to build a life with him, don't settle.
Yeah. Do you mind if I ask you?
Of course. Hit me. You're a podcaster.
Yeah. What, like, with your husband, like, what do you think is like the key secret sauce to your success?
The thing that amazed me the most about my husband when we first started dating is the lack of jealousy. And I say that because I had only been in a handful of relationships prior, but I was in a 6-year relationship, then dated a little bit before meeting him. And when we met, I was modeling. I was Miss Arizona USA. I was doing all these things that made a lot of people very jealous when we would be dating. And I felt like I had to change myself. I felt like I had to almost dim a little bit of that.
Yeah.
And I also am somebody that is very ambitious. I want a lot of things in my life. And when he came into the picture, it was always like, that's amazing. I love that. And even in our wedding vows, we have been together almost 10 years now. But in our vows, he literally says, I will never try and dim your light. And it's every time that I've been like, hey, I want to go try this. Like, perfect example. I wanted to move to New York City and see if I had what it took to model. He booked the ticket and went to go figure it out. That I think it takes a very specific kind of person to have that level of selflessness and non-jealousy. Because honestly, I don't have that. I don't. I feel like if we had 2 people that were like that, it probably wouldn't work very well. But I do think that's kind of the secret sauce, is that we enhance each other's lives instead of making it so like, you were this way when I met you, so I need you to continue to be that way.
Honestly, like I was hoping that's what you'd say. Like that is, I think, the key in a partner of someone who champions you. And like, even if, let's say, but it doesn't sound like he's like this, but like, even if he's like, oh, I don't know, New York is so tough. Can we talk about it? Can we discuss it? Like, cause I see you and I understand you and I know what your desires are. And I champion you for those desires. And I love that you're that way. That is like so important. And I think that so many women go the other way of like, someone squandering all their hope for their lives, and then you just dim and dim and dim until you don't even know who you are anymore.
And you go through such an identity crisis. And women are so multifaceted. We carry so many different labels. Like you have the label when you show up at your corporate job, and then when you're in front of your parents, when you're in front of your friends, like we are always morphing and changing. But I have found a lot of women that have these like identity crisis that they're like, I am just one thing. Right now, I'm just a wife or I'm just a mom. And they need to be reminded of like, no, you are still all of those multifaceted, beautiful things. You've just denied yourself that for so long.
Yeah. I'll tell you, like, I remember very vividly, in that COVID relationship, I was with someone who was a homeowner, a business owner, like he had told me, he's like, if we're together, like I want to buy us a $4 million house. And I was just like, so like not there, that I was like, well, what's the point of me being ambitious? Because if he's going to just buy us the $4 million house, like, what is my purpose in life? And I literally thought to myself, I think I'll just become an alcoholic. Like, I just remember being like, if I'm just this lonely and bored and unfulfilled, like, I can see myself becoming like one of those women who just drinks wine all day.
Yep.
And that is such a, like, I would rather be single for 40 more years because the things that I get to do in my single life are 100 times better than that.
Totally. And I think that I wouldn't have made the decisions that I made now as a 30-year-old woman that I did as a 22-year-old woman. Like when I look back at that, I was like, that was pretty irresponsible and like had no money, but I also had no responsibilities. That for women that are listening, that you still have responsibilities, but your partner is open and willing to allow you to change into who you feel that you are called to become.
Yeah.
That's like, Brendan has no idea what I do on a day-to-day basis. He knows that I put out podcasts. He's the first one to share every single podcast episode.
Cutie.
I'll play, like, bounce ideas off of him, and he's like, yeah, I think that's good. And I'm like, you're not my target demographic in any way. But I never have to feel like what I'm doing doesn't matter. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That I think that part has always been really important to me because I come from my own limiting beliefs and my own worth. And my biggest fear has always been looking and sounding stupid. And when you're teaching yourself something new, you look and sound stupid a lot. So like putting myself out there as a business owner and a podcast host, like it's this constant fear that I think if I had a partner that validated that fear or elevated that fear, I think we would be in a much different place.
By the way, I think that's just like a really like real fear for women, because I was going to ask you, is that from pageant days? But I'm realizing that I'm facing this right now coming out of leaving my tech job and telling people I'm a content creator. I always like followed up with, I used to work at Spotify.
To validate what you're doing and to be like, oh, but by the way, like I actually have good
Upright.
work ethic and I did work, and you defend it.
Yeah.
Where I find myself doing the exact same thing. And it was tough. We actually went on a work trip. My husband's in sales and he works for this major company. And a lot of the women that we were around are women that also worked at the company mainly. Like the wives were fantastic and great, but a lot of the women that worked at the company were like, so what do you do? And I'm like, that's always a loaded question. Because I'm like, well, I host a podcast and I have this female empowerment company, but then I also have this confidence course. And it's like, I find myself defending what it is and how to make it a business. And then it's like, as I'm defending it, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, just stop talking.
And like, to who?
Exactly. To who? She doesn't even know your first name. Like, give her the benefit of the doubt that like people, when they make small talk, and I'm learning this the older I get, that especially people that don't know you, they're going to ask questions that are just kind of stereotypical questions, not to offend you, but because they don't know what else to say.
Yeah, I know. I am such a people pleaser at my core that like, it's better to say less.
It's always better to say less.
Gosh.
Do less.
Yeah.
Say less. And also just like stand in your power of say it and then like see what they say next.
Totally.
Don't assume that they're already thinking something.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, these are our subconscious habits that we need to break.
Always.
Yeah.
Always. It's all in our head. And it's, you know, our past always validates our future and our experiences.
Yeah.
And I think it's important, if you want to have a different result, if you want your future to be different, you really have to like find the lessons and also shut off those limiting beliefs.
What's your like number one like confidence that changes your confidence? What's your like number one habit that you do?
Rewiring my thoughts. Because I still find myself now, like my 20s were a very intense chapter of trying to find what I thought was confidence. So long story short, I also lost 60 pounds when I was 19.
Oh my God.
And 3 months, I absolutely tortured my body for a fitness competition. Oh, wow. But right after I won the title of Miss Arizona USA, right after I got a modeling contract. So it validated that like, okay, I'm smaller, so I'm more valuable. And I did have a lot of confidence. But then my body started being like, F you. I had all this metabolic damage. Like my body started to regulate a little bit more. And that confidence just completely went away because I started self-sabotaging. So then I spent most of my 20s trying to get that confidence back. But what I didn't realize is that it was my self-worth that was missing the entire time. Because I chose to put myself out there because I felt more confident. Where I'm the exact same person. I have the exact same things to say, and it's just as valid. I just didn't believe it was. So long story short, that was like my overall trying to become the confident woman that I am now in my 30s. And I do think there's something about turning 32 that like unlocks this piece of you. But I was taught this technique when I was in therapy about rewiring your thoughts. That our subconscious will literally pop all of these things from back experiences back into our head anytime a trigger comes up in our environment. So if I stumble over my words, it's like my subconscious will be like, see, you're stupid. You're going over. And then I consciously have to be like, no, I'm not. No, I'm not.
Yep.
But I can do that now because in the beginning when I would be journaling, I literally would write out the negative thought and then cross it out and put in a new phrase.
I like that.
And it was a continual thing that I was doing every day that now I think I just do it mentally.
Good.
You know, but it took a lot of manual work
Yeah.
in the beginning to be able to do it. But I feel like if you're not aware of your thoughts, it just runs your life. And
Yeah.
the majority of our thoughts are negative, even if you're a positive person.
Yeah.
The majority of our thoughts are negative.
It's almost like, and I'm ambitious too, like almost like as ambitious people, you think that you need to talk down to yourself in order to become achievement, successful. It's this really weird toxic cycle.
So toxic.
Yeah.
I was reading this book. It's called Worthy by Jamie Kern Lima.
Mm-hmm.
I've been reading a chapter of it every morning, and she was talking about the fact that a lot of high achievers will think that if they start practicing self-love, it will dwindle their drive because they'll just start thinking like, I'm enough as I am, all these things. And her whole philosophy is it does the opposite actually, because now you have such an innate innate sense of self-worth that you're going to push yourself further because you already know that you're not attached to the outcome.
I totally agree. I read The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks.
Oh, I haven't read that.
You and I, we're
the same.
Yeah, we're the same, but also we're like, 30 is fabulous.
30 is so
I read
fabulous.
this self-help book, like where there's like all the tropes of like a 30-year-old woman on social media, but
On
that's
brand.
okay. It's okay. And he says that we have this like upper limit theory where we think this is like where we can reach, but we have more than that. And I think that's the self-worth piece that tells us we can reach higher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And for you, I'm curious because I was nervous about turning 30. Starting in like my mid 20s, I started getting worried all of a sudden. But then it was kind of when I hit like 28, 29, it was more like, I'm so excited for this next chapter because I felt like I kind of lived my 20s in a
Yeah.
way. I lived many lives in my 20s that I'm like, I hope that 30s is just like a fresh chapter, like can have some more of that confidence. And I do feel like I tapped into that more. Maybe it's a placebo effect. I don't know. But what was it like for you turning 30?
Yeah. I mean, I think that so much of my late 20s, I was still a little bit conditioned to think, and I wonder if it was maybe a little different for you. I think because I didn't have a partner and
Yeah.
I was not going to cross that check mark of I got married and I know who I'm going to have kids with. I was still, I think, trying to figure that out. And then it was like all of 29 where I was just like, you know what? Or even like close to 30, like I was just like, I thought I knew everything and now I know nothing. And I'm just going to go into 30 and not know anything and let Jesus take the wheel. Like, I don't care anymore. I think I spent so much of my 20s being like, I need to accomplish all of this. And because it didn't happen, it relieved me of that pressure. I was like, you know what? I'm not married at 30 and maybe people think I'm a bit of a mess. And now I can go move to Austin and start my podcast and date people who I'd never dated before. Like, for so long I was dating like doctors and lawyers and good on paper people. Now I'm dating guys here and I'm like so attracted to men with like tattoos, mustaches, and trucks. Like,
What a shift.
what a shift. And maybe it's just a phase, but I just get to do those things and not
Yeah.
have to worry about the fact that society is going to shame me for it. And like for me, I created a lot of social media content for a long time where I say like I'm 30 and single, or I was creating content where I was like I'm 29 and single, and I was starting a lot of my content that way because it was the thing I feared most. It was really like in the culture and society I grew up in, just something that I really was afraid to admit. And I even still go to weddings and people are like, when is it going to be you? And I get that feeling when I'm around people that I grew up with. And I made this video that, I had just been creating this series. I had like this right-wing political commentator take my video. His name's Matt Walsh. And he took it and he tweeted it. And I talked about how like I was spending my day as a girl who's 29 and single. I said I woke up in the morning. I didn't get out of bed until 10 a.m. I was hungover from the Beyonce concert. I decided I was going to make shakshuka and I was going to watch Real Housewives of New York. Like I was going to watch like reruns.
Sounds like a great day.
I literally said in the video, I said, when I think about not being where society tells me that I should be in life, I get to do that on my Saturday. Like my sister had already by 10 a.m. gone to like soccer practice, gone to camp, gone to a kid's birthday party. And I had just been rising from bed deciding what I was going to do with my day. And he took my video and tweeted it to his like 2 million followers and said how my life is meaningless, how I'm too stupid to realize how pathetic and meaningless my life is. And it was at that moment that I realized, oh, this isn't just I grew up in a traditional cultural thing. This is a societal thing where women get shamed for not being where we're expected to be in life. And no man would ever get that same commentary if he was like, I woke up at 10 a.m. from some brewskis and went to go play golf and make some new food. No guy would get that.
Never. It's not even a thought for guys.
No.
It's not even a thought.
No, I'll meet 50-year-old men who are single and they're like, yeah, I think I want to have kids.
What a double standard.
Yeah.
I cannot believe that he shamed you like that.
Yeah. And Candace Owens doubled down, like women pitting. Yeah.
I really struggle with the idea of women pitting women against each other. Mm-hmm. And this kind of goes back to what we were talking about just a second ago, that there's no right way. And I get that, especially the Candace Owens, like if your path was you wanted to get married and you wanted to have kids and you love being a mother and you love doing whatever you're doing, go off, girl.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that you need to do it. That doesn't mean I need to do it. That doesn't mean whoever needs to do it. But they're hounding and doubling down on this. What do you think that's doing to women overall? Do you think you're going to bully them into settling in a relationship?
I mean, yeah, like the thing is if you think back, first of all, my sister and I like grew up in the same exact household, same exact parenting. My sister got married at 25, had her first kid by 27, her second kid by 31. Like that is the path that my sister followed. I tried, and if you look back at all of my 20s where men are telling me I'm too fat and that they don't want to be intimate with me, according to Candace Owens and Matt Walsh, that I should follow that. It'd be better if I was in a relationship with that man who was constantly telling me my body looked bad than be, God forbid, 29 and single, 30 and single.
When you put it like that, it's like, how can anybody say that makes sense?
Right.
Anyone.
Right. And that's why so many women are afraid. Like, they think that guy is good enough. And I'm like, no.
How did you handle the feedback or the comments or the responses that got?
I mean, I'm like spiritual woo-woo now. Obviously, I told you about my plant medicine journey. So I believe it happened to me at a time where like I was able to handle it. I had just come off of 3 years of therapy, my plant medicine journey. Like it all happened as exactly as it should. And like, with putting yourself out there on social media and like, you were Miss Arizona, like you got it. I was able to handle it because I had my practices that I was able to lean on. So through therapy, I knew how to meditate. I knew how to like do breath work. I knew that I needed to get centered. I went to the beach that day. Like I knew what to do. I deleted TikTok off my phone. That being said, like I guess like for me, it was hard sometimes where people would like, I would read some comments where people would be like, oh, Candace got her, Candace roasted her. But like, those are not the people that I'm speaking to anyway. Those are not the people who want to listen to me anyway. There's a whole side of the internet that I do want to reach and I do want to connect with this community. And I was lucky enough that like the good side of the internet came through. I was really lucky. Like Mark Cuban came to my defense. And once he did that publicly, by the way, like if Mark Cuban was a 30-year-old or 35, 40-year-old single man, we'd be together today. But
what do you mean Mark Cuban came to your defense? He saw it?
He saw the tweet and he tweeted in defense. Yeah, so he first said to Matt Walsh, he was like, says the guy who spends his like life on the internet. And I think, and people pointed this out to me and it's so crazy. Matt Walsh, who spent his weekend tweeting about me, a 29-year-old single woman, has 4 kids, has a wife. Instead of being with his family, he's tweeting about some 29-year-old girl in LA with 7,000 TikTok followers about how pathetic and meaningless her life is. But that garnered him 42 million impressions and a lot of money.
I feel like a lot of these people, I would be curious to know them not with a mic in front of their face and be like, do you genuinely believe what you just said? Or are you just trying to get impressions and make money?
It's so funny because I know I want to say that to his followers. I'm like, they were doing his dirty work for weeks. He was on to the next. He was tweeting about Emily Ratajkowski.
I'm sure he's upset about her too.
He was upset about her. He knows how to rile up his base, where it's like, let's put women, like attractive women, in people's faces so that they feel very angry. And he just knows how to do that. And I'm almost like, wow, you're a marketing genius. Maybe I need to take a course of yours. But I just don't jive with anyone who makes a living off of putting people down.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
And I feel like if there's any women listening to us right now that align with what he did or what Candace was saying, this probably is not the place for you.
Totally.
This is not a safe space.
No.
Because the only time I will ever go toe to toe with a woman is when they're putting somebody else down.
Yeah.
Like that is projecting your own insecurities in such a big way.
Yeah.
And it's so wrong and it's so unfair, but it's something that is happening all the time. And I do think that as we were growing up, like social media wasn't really a thing that was constantly there. But like, what message do you think that you're sending to young women by doing that?
I know. And like, the thing is on social media, like you put yourself out there, you're going to get scrutinized. And like, I don't agree with everyone on the internet. I just can't imagine being a person who stops, writes a comment, and is like, you're so stupid and ugly and fat. Like, I can't imagine.
No.
And I think that like if you're someone who has, I mean, the people listening are not these people, but like if you're someone who has those inclinations, go seek therapy.
Exactly. There is some very deep hurt that needs to be addressed within you, because the people that are doing that are very unhealed people.
Totally.
A healed person is not capable of doing that to another person.
Yeah.
Whew, I could go on a complete tangent about this, but your TikTok has completely blown up. So are you starting your videos off with being 30 and single?
I was, and then I was getting like the feedback, like enough. I just like thought it was important to say.
It is important.
Yeah. And also like some people were also like copying my content. So I was like, okay, I think I'm going to pivot here. And I think that like really who I want to connect with is single people who are struggling with dating. And you asked me at the beginning of this interview before we were recording, like, do you think you're a dating expert? I don't know that I can classify myself as a dating expert. First of all, I'm single, but I do think that like I have a lot of experience in dating. I wish I had written down the stories of all my first dates, but I bet you at this point, like after a decade of dating, I've probably been on like 150 first dates. Like I probably have. And I would be Carrie Bradshaw. I would have a book if I had written them all down. But I think that what I want to help people do is like find the joy in dating and like enjoy the journey, not put so much pressure on it, because I spent so much of my 20s doing that. I think we're at a really important inflection point with dating right now where people are so tired of the apps and humans are not connecting in real life in the way that they should be. And I just want to bring back like ease of dating. And I think there's so many, I think if you talk to women, they're like, men are not doing this. And if you talk to men, they're like, women are just giving us such a hard time. I'm like, let's just all try and vibe and make it easier. And also at the same time, people I'm speaking to is mostly women. I'm like, also let's be really confident to know that like when someone is not rising to the occasion and is not treating you the way you should be treated, it's on to the next.
Amen. Preach. Mic drop. But speaking predominantly to women too, I'm always curious because I do believe that there's still a lot of good men out there that are probably scared about how they approach dating too. Yeah. And that's what I like about your content so much is I do feel like a man could look at that and still get a lot of value out of it. Might not be your target demographic.
Yeah.
But I saw that you just hosted a first ever like meetup with another guy at Soho House. Yeah. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So we came together. A mutual friend set us up like she was just like, you moved to Austin. He lives in Austin. He's a life coach. You're obviously creating dating content. I think there's something there. And so we met up and I almost like don't know if we both were like, is she setting us up to date?
Like whatever. Or what are we doing?
But it was pretty clear like early on, like we were talking about dating and I told him things like, oh my God, like I hate when like men just sing unannounced. Like it gives me the ick. And he's like, I do that all the time. And I was like, and I hate when men wear no-show socks. And he's like, I'm wearing no-show socks right now. But we ended up. Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah. These are stupid, superficial things. This is, listen, I'm from LA. I'm not denying that I'm superficial. But we ended up like really bonding in our friendship and realized like, okay, like we're getting along and we've connected despite having these things that we both, I'm sure there are things that he didn't like about me. Let's talk about it. Like, let's talk about the icks and like the hot takes all these people have, because you're swiping on an app and like you're just getting kind of like the bits and pieces of a human. You're not connecting with like them on a soul level. And I think we were like, let's just get everyone in a room. Like, let's get men and women and let's talk about the hot takes of dating. So like we got like long distance relationships or eating in bed. We were just like, can you guys talk about like what your thoughts are and like come up stage and like talk about them. Let's talk about our icks. And it was, I don't know if like, I'm not trying to pressure people to like meet their husbands at these events, but I just want to have people our age or like around our age connect again. And have it be lighthearted instead of all pitting one another against each other. And you're right. Like, I'm hearing anecdotally from men, they're afraid to approach women because they're afraid women are going to be really mean to them. They're also like afraid. The Me Too movement probably exacerbated it. Like, they're just afraid. And women, on the other hand, myself included, are like, men are not approaching us anymore. Now we have to do all the work. And by the way, some guys are making us split the meal on a first date. So like, what is it? I'm just like, let's bring like ease again. So it was really fun. And I think that a lot of people had a lot of fun. And I think that like our rapport helped, and we talked about all of our icks and about each other. And I think there's something there. Like, I posted a video just saying I'm doing a dating event. I got so many comments saying, please do this in Dallas. Please do this in Atlanta. Please do this in North Carolina. Like, so many people want this because I think that everyone feels so disconnected.
You're onto something. And you had just said that you don't feel like you can classify yourself as a dating expert. And it got me thinking, though, it wouldn't make sense for a dating expert to be somebody that's in a relationship or married because they're no longer dating.
Yeah.
Like, you're literally out in the wild, like collecting value for everyone and passing that along.
Yeah.
I think you shouldn't sell yourself short. Like, you are an expert.
Thank you. I mean, I think like what I compare myself to are, I think that there's like a generation of like matchmakers and dating experts and dating coaches who will say things like, if you didn't like hate him on the first date, go on a second date. And I'm like, well, if I didn't like him,
then why?
Yeah,
your time is very valuable. And I think people, the older you get, you realize that too. That it's like, you know pretty quickly if you vibe with somebody or if you don't.
Totally.
You do. But I also think that I have a girlfriend right now that just signed up for dating apps after being in a long relationship and was looking at just superficial things of how hot he was or not.
Yeah.
And this guy, they obviously had matched and reached out to her. And she almost didn't go on a date with him, met him in person and was like, this is not my type at all. I've never been more attracted to somebody based off their personality.
Cool.
And they're now in a full-fledged relationship.
Oh my God. This would happen to her where she's like, this is the first date that I downloaded a dating app. That always happens.
Literally. So I'm like, and I have no advice for you other than like, maybe slowly roll, but also like, if it feels right, go. I don't know.
I think my advice that I give people a lot, and I get mixed messages on this, but it works for me because my time is valuable. I hop on the phone with someone before a date because if I can catch your vibe and just hear that you're a normal person, by the way, if you're up for hopping on the phone, we're probably aligned there and we're both, outgoing people who can handle a phone call. I hop on a little call and I don't have to get my makeup and hair done for a date and then be disappointed after. It saves me a lot of time and energy.
How do you initiate that you want to have a phone call?
I have my literal thing that I say, and everyone should steal this. They'll be like, oh, let me know what your availability is this week. And I'm like, yeah, I would love that. Also, how do you feel about hopping on the phone? Big phone call gal. And then I just
casual, but it's, I like that.
Yeah.
And also it shows if they have confidence and initiative too.
Yes. There was a guy who I didn't answer him. And then a month later, he's like, hey. And I was like, hey, want to hop on the phone? We hopped on a FaceTime, which if they want to hop on a FaceTime, like, amazing. I liked him so much on that FaceTime. We went on a date and he breadcrumbed me. That's a whole different story. But I liked him.
Okay, explain for me, because I've been out of the game for a hot second. What do you mean he breadcrumbed you?
Yeah,
what does that mean?
I've become this girl, I use this dating lingo that I'm sorry.
No, I need to know. And also, I'm sure a lot of our listeners, either they're like, yes, absolutely, or they're like me that is like, wait, what? Help.
I mean, I think what happens a lot in dating and in general, I'm sure this just happens with other aspects, not just dating, but like, I think that we project quickly. So like we go on a good date and they're like, oh, he's amazing. They're amazing, whatever. And that was happening after our first date. Like he was very into me. And then like, I have a feeling as someone who creates dating content, he started to immerse himself in my content. That's my theory. And I think he started to slowly pull away. It was like coming in hot, calling me every day, texting me every day, telling me that we're going to go on a second date. And then slowly but surely just don't hear from him.
Is that different than... It is, but from love bombing? Like, was it to that level?
I think it's like a love bomb coincides with breadcrumbing. First they love bomb, and then they slowly just start to like back away.
And then they ghost.
And then, yeah. I guess I said he ghosted, but I had like texted because I just need the closure. And I was just like, hey, what happened here? And he was like, hey, Julia, just been really busy with work.
Like that's all I needed to hear, because
no one is busier than someone who doesn't like you.
That was good. But you're right. And also we make time for things that are a priority to us.
100%.
Always. Nobody is too busy.
Like when your husband texts you, you're just like, little, or especially when you started dating, like your heart skipped a beat.
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh, too busy, my ass. Okay, let's talk for all of our girlies getting ready for a first date.
Yeah.
Do you have anything that you do in particular to like remind yourself to just be yourself, to walk in confident? Like how do you not get worked up and so attached to the outcome?
You know what? Sammy Spalter was recently on my podcast and she said a mantra that I really liked. She said, it's either a good date or a good story.
I like that a lot.
I like that a lot because it literally is that. The worst thing that can happen is that you hear someone's life story for an hour. Like the best case scenario is that you guys go on a second date and this is someone that you like. And also like just know no matter what, you're going to go have drinks with your girlfriends, you're going to tell them about this story. It's not that the stakes are not that high. Like just eliminate the stakes. I also am not someone, I was talking to this girl. I met this girl actually Friday night. I was out with my girlfriend and she was sitting with her friend getting ready to go on a date and she was 24. And it was so funny to see the difference of like how we are. And she was so nervous.
I'm sure.
She was so nervous. And I was like, oh, like, did you guys hop on a phone call? And she's like, our generation doesn't do that. You're crazy boomer. Like, absolutely not. And she was like drinking. I don't want to before a date. I think that like, I want to have my wits about me because then I also like don't want to overshare, for example. But to each their own. Some girls will like pregame with a cocktail ahead of time. And it was just, I don't know, there's nothing there, but it was just like a funny thing to see how like Gen Z does differ. It really, I was like looking at her, she's 24. I'm like, the world is your oyster. Like,
truly.
If this is not your husband, like your husband will come and like it'll all feel right when he does. So just enjoy it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing that I have learned throughout my relationship, and also learned this in therapy to begin with, is that the other person will not complete you. Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like we were sold this idea that your perfect match is supposed to complete you in every way. And if you're complete, then you'll be happy. And I think a lot of people will be in relationships, even with good people, but they're unhappy and they automatically point the finger and assume that it's because of that person. Mm-hmm. So they'll exit the relationship or won't really figure out what is there. And I do think that if you're not genuinely happy with yourself, if you're not good with yourself, like back to it starting and ending with you, mm-hmm. even the most perfect quote unquote person isn't going to bring that happiness to your life, isn't going to complete you. I feel like that's such a false idea that women especially have been sold, but I assume men too, that like you think that person's going to fix everything.
Yeah.
And they don't.
Yeah. You know what? I think that for women, it's the partner, because we watched Disney and we saw that like the Prince Charming comes and wakes you from your slumber and saves you from your evil stepmom. And like, that's what happens. Mm-hmm. I think for men, where they fall short is maybe like if your career isn't going well, if you're not like having success in that aspect of your life, you feel like a total failure in that regard. So I think we both battle the same things. But I think that both men and women, like there are so many parts of you that complete you. And like when I think about the soulmate talk, and I talk about this a lot on my podcast too, I don't buy that you have one. Like I think some of my female friendships are my soulmates. Like I really do. Like I think my parents are my soulmates. I think my sister is my soulmate. There are so many relationships that I have that when one of those things isn't going right, like that, you know, that does affect me and impact me. And there are the things that I love to do and pour into myself and my career. There's so much that it's not just riding on that one person. I think you're so right about that.
Absolutely. And you just have to, I think the sooner you realize that, the more freeing it is.
Yeah.
You know, then like you said, you're not putting so much stake into
Yeah.
every first date or into every relationship, that it's, you do that healing. And then once you come from it from a healed place, like after your whole experience, I'm sure the way you approach dating now, it's just different. You're not looking for that validation in the other person, I would assume.
No, totally. And I think the hope is to find a husband like the one you have, where it's like, then he becomes like my teammate. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have this power over me, and we are equals in this relationship. And even now, like I'm 30 and I wonder, and like I always pose this question to my friends, like if you could see who it was, would you want to see? Would you want to know? I don't want to know. I just know it's happening. I have faith that it's happening. And I'm weird where I talk to like tarot card readers and do all that stuff. Like I know he's going to meet me exactly when he's supposed to meet me. And so my only thing I can control now is the journey that I'm on and having the most fun when I'm on that journey. Sometimes is it lonely? Yes. But then sometimes it's really, really fun too. So that equals out. That's life. That's the balance.
Exactly. That's life.
Yeah.
And it goes back to just not settling.
Yeah.
You know, you enjoy the ride. And I do think that as cheesy and cliche as it is, like when you least expect it, that's when you end up finding them. When you're trying the least, like not that you obviously have to put yourself out there. Like they're not going to break into your house and be Prince Charming.
Yeah.
But I do think that if you're putting so much pressure on it, then one, you're probably not being yourself.
Totally.
You know, and if you're not the best version of yourself and dating somebody for the first time, like they're not able to see who you truly are.
Yeah. I always say it's like wringing out a dry towel when you're like trying to cling on. You kind of just have to be in flow. How did you meet your husband?
Slid in the DM. Before it was cool to do. So this was almost 10 years ago.
I don't know if you've been on social media today, but I posted a video about how to slide into DMs.
Okay, tell me everything I need to know.
No, you tell me.
Well, I'll tell you how he did it. And I do think
he
it was
slid into
he
the
slid
DMs?
into the
Okay.
DMs, not me.
Okay.
So he was working for NBC Sunday Night Football at the time, and the Super Bowl was in Arizona. And that was the year that I was Miss Arizona USA. Cool. And so I popped up on his popular page, and I think that he was looking for like a booty call when he came into the state.
Wow.
And DM'd me and was like, hey, are you going to the Super Bowl? And at the time, I am looking through his pictures. I see that he's on the field a lot, have no idea how old he is. I'm like, okay, it's a good looking dude.
Yeah.
Like, cool. And so I responded and was like, if you want to take me, here's my number.
Love that.
I had game at one
You
point.
did.
I had game.
Yeah.
And he literally would, like 30 seconds later, and I've talked to him every single day since, that like he just wouldn't let up. But I do think he was smart about his approach for it, because it was like a fun way to initiate conversation. Mm-hmm. But I don't know a whole lot of people that have met in that way. So if you were to slide into someone's DMs, what would you say?
And granted, like actually I've gone on a date from a guy I slid into his DMs here.
Let's go.
And someone replied to me saying, so funny that you posted this today. I literally met a couple this weekend who met via slide in. And when I worked at Tinder, our biggest competitor was not Bumble. It was Instagram.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think a DM slide, and every guy I talk to, listen, I'm traditional. I want a guy to court me. But guys do love when a girl just gives them a little bit. I think fine if you're a very traditional girly and you don't jive with this, like their photo. That's what happened to me. I liked a photo, then he liked mine back, and I was like, "Do you think this is like the new Facebook poking?"
Oh,
And
that's cute.
yeah, and then we just like and we ended up going on a date. It like not there, but just feeling like I put myself out there. And like this happened in a natural way is great.
Yeah.
It's just a nice little confidence boost.
For sure.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on dating apps at this stage of your life? Do you love them? Do you hate them?
I'll never hate them because like they do serve a purpose, and the amount of marriages and people that you meet that you would have never met, even moving here, I've met a lot of people. And even when I was hosting my dating event here, I reached out to some guys that I was like, okay, well, it didn't work out for us. You should come to the dating event. Like, no pressure.
I love that.
Yeah. I think it's an amazing tool. And this I've like stolen from Damona Hoffman, who's like a dating coach that I've had on my podcast, but she says it's a tool in your toolbox. You should have it on the back burner, but you should not just rely on it. You should be asking your friends if they have setups. You should be going to networking events. You should go to bars. Like, you should do all of it and not just rely on this one way of like, perfect. I just need this to happen in this way. Like, live your life how you want to be living it. And so many people say, like all the dating coaches say, if you do things you love, like you'll meet people who are like-minded. My problem is like the things that I love are like gossiping with my girlfriends, getting drinks, and like having dinners. Like, I don't play pickleball. I don't, like, so that's tough for me.
Yeah.
But I travel. I don't know. Like, I think that if you just tap into your networks, it can happen. Or if you are someone who does have real hobbies, like real adult hobbies, amazing. I'm just not one of those
That's
people.
a hobby. Going out, getting drinks with girlfriends, going to bougie restaurants. That's a hobby.
Totally. I mean, yeah, like I saw like yesterday, like our mutual friend Jade, and like I saw, and Eleanor was there, and she was like, oh, maybe my boyfriend has friends that I can set you up with.
See?
Yes.
It's a hobby.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on taking yourself on solo dates?
Love. Obsessed. I think it's so important. When I started to do that, so all of 29, my goal of 29 was to get really comfortable being alone. Because I don't think that enough of I think so many of us are like go, go, go and not slowing down. And I think, first of all, I learned that like I'm my favorite person. Like,
hell yeah.
I realized when I decided one weekend, like this is when it kind of started for me, is I was still living in California. I was living in LA, and I took a weekend road trip to Laguna Beach, which is like super kind of like nice surf town by LA. And I was like, I'm going to get myself a hotel room. I'm going to drive up there. I'm going to take myself to a nice dinner. I was driving and I was like, what am I going to listen to? And I'm like, well, I have the best taste in music, so I'm going to listen to all the music I want to listen to. I'm going to listen to Mariah Carey and NSYNC and like all the hits.
Incredible.
And then I'm like, okay, and then what do I get to do? I want to journal on the beach. And then I was like, I want to go get myself ice cream. Like, you get to do all the things that you want to do. And then I took myself out to like a bar to watch the sunset, and then to like a really nice steak dinner. And everyone was like, who is this little blonde girl with her crop top and her pants sitting at the bar by herself eating like crab legs? They all wanted to talk to me, and everyone was like, oh my God, so cool that you're doing this. Who do we know? Like,
it's attractive.
Fun. It's really attractive. I've gotten free drinks from bartenders. You really like putting yourself in these situations is so important, and spending time with yourself is so important because like you are your best friend.
And it also increases your confidence like crazy because you're okay with being alone.
Yes.
That's huge.
Yes. Yes.
I love that you do that.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's big.
I kind of even inspired like my friends who were married, who they were like, I'm going to do it. And by the way, you should still kind of like date, like even you saying that your husband doesn't know what you do all day. I'm like, that's kind of sexy because it's like you're still dating and flirting, and he's like, tell me what you do today.
Totally. Yeah. And also still maintaining that independence in a relationship, that it's not like every single social thing that either one of us do has to include each other all the time.
Totally. Because then if you never know how it is to be alone, and then you meet someone and you get married, and then he goes for a weekend trip, you're like panicking. You're like, oh my God, I've never done this. Mm-hmm. It's a wild thought.
It is a wild thought. And it's just important to like, you don't lose yourself just because you're in a relationship or just because you do get married. Like, that's a choice that I think a lot of people do, or we all know the girl that like starts dating someone and you just never see her again unless he's out of town or something like that.
Yeah.
But I think it's just an important thing to just continue practicing. And obviously the older you get, I think the more you learn this stuff.
Yeah.
And the importance of this stuff.
Yeah.
But I do think it's a form of self-care too, to continue just being confident being solo.
Yeah. And I think even if you're someone who doesn't want to sit at a bar by themselves, maybe you don't drink, taking yourself to the park. Like, I love to read in the park, journaling in the park, like just be with yourself. Coffee shop. Just like an hour or two, just do that.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a handful of questions about first dates that I'm sure there's going to be some of our listeners that are deciding whether it's like a smash or pass situation, okay?
Okay.
So let's say you're going on a first date and the guy asks you to split the bill. At the very end,
Pass.
pass every time.
Yeah.
And that doesn't matter where it is, right? If they choose the restaurant,
I would literally rather go with you on a free walk, a coffee, one drink. Don't take me to a restaurant. I will go on 5 first dates with you walking. I would just don't make me split the bill.
that's such an uncomfortable position to put everybody in.
Agree.
And also don't ask if you have that assumption.
I agree.
You're probably not at a secure place in your life.
Yeah.
Okay, I digress on that one. So first date, I was going to say, if it's just drinks or just coffee, is that a smash or pass?
Yeah, it's a smash. I think that a first date is like just the courting, like just getting to know each other. It's a vibe check. So honestly, someone I've had on my podcast is like, go in Lululemons. Don't even get dressed up. Let them see you at like your core. I'm not there yet. But yeah, I'm up for that for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you haven't yet met that person, it's been on a dating app and they ask for your Instagram, smash or pass?
Pass.
If they ask for your Snapchat.
Beyond, like in the grave, pass.
Why are people still doing this?
I think Gen Z's doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, the Instagram thing is like so fuckboy coded where it's like, I want to stalk to see like if you look like your photos. And I'm just like, that energy means you value looks way too much. You don't want to get to know me at my core. By the way, like every girl does the stalk, but like when I do the stalk, I find things that I don't like about the guy. Mm-hmm. I already write him off. It's not worth it.
Before a date, do you go and find their social media and do some stalking?
Yeah, unfortunately. That's a toxic habit. But
I also, safety. You need to know their real person.
Yes, I definitely find their LinkedIn for sure.
Okay, I like a LinkedIn baddie. That's a good way to do it. Now, if they have their Instagram on their dating app profile, smash or pass?
Like the old me would have said pass because it shows that they're trying to garner followers. But maybe they're trying to show you they're real.
Okay, so circumstantial.
Yeah, I'm in between on that one. I've let go of like my hard rules. Get to know like them. I'll get on the phone, and if it seems like a guy who's full of himself, I'm like, oh yeah, that's why you had your Instagram handle in your bio.
Mm-hmm. Okay, if they have a mirror selfie with their shirt off, smash or pass?
Pass.
If they have photos on their profile that is just with a dog or just with their mom, is it trying too hard? Is that a smash or pass?
No, I literally sometimes it's a smash. I see their dog and I'm like, your dog is so cute.
They're
just
smart.
Want to meet your dog.
They're
smart. They're smart.
What girl is gonna not love a photo of you with your dog?
Yeah. Sometimes like I literally am like, I just want to meet that dog.
Like I'll go on a date with you solely so I have access to the dog.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. So since you just moved to a brand new city too, and you're dating in a brand new city, you said you're now into mustaches and tattoos.
Unfortunately, I made a video about it. I was like, that'll pass.
That'll pass. But for right now, that's a big old smash.
Kind of.
What about a mullet?
No, that's where I draw the line. But doesn't like Kristen Cavallari's man have a mullet?
Is that technically a mullet?
I don't know. Whatever that is, that works.
Yeah.
That works.
Okay, age difference beyond, let's say 10 years.
If they're I'm 30 and my limit is 28 to 42.
How'd you come up with that?
I think I'm good with a guy. 28 is like pretty young. Honestly, after Kristen Cavallari, I went from 29 to 28. I was like, okay, we can give one more year. Yeah. I think there are mature 28-year-olds, but for the majority of men, I think that their best ages are like 33 to 38. That's hopefully when they're most mature and not too set in their ways. So I think like that's my sweet spot, but I'm just going a little older in case there are edge cases and a little younger in case there are edge cases.
I like that. I also saw a video that you posted about maybe you should start dating divorced men.
Yeah.
Explain this to me.
I know. So I had a friend in town and she was telling me that her husband, there's his second marriage to her. And I was like, I think I like that for you. Like, it sounds like he knows what he wanted. He knew what he wanted. He was like very intentional with the divorce. They didn't have kids. I just think that there's a lot of shame around divorce. And she was like, well, thanks for saying that. I feel like there's a lot of shame. If you made a video about that, that would make me feel like good as a woman. Unfortunately, like, I got so many male followers as a result. And they're like, hey, divorced man here.
I'm right here.
Yeah. I really think it matters on like why they got divorced. But I think to discount a divorced man because he's divorced, like, what if they just got married very young and he didn't know? I kind of like if someone like intentionally went to therapy and like knows what they want, I think it is like a skill.
So it's a smash.
It's a smash. I mean, depending on the situation.
Okay,
truly.
circumstantial smash.
Yeah,
I like
yeah.
it. If a guy asked you to go back to his place after a first date,
Pass.
I like that.
Yeah.
If a guy asked you to come over to his house for a first date,
Pass.
second date,
Is he cooking?
let's give him the benefit of the doubt, sure.
Smash. I think.
Okay. Say you walk into his place and it's decorated beautifully. Smash or pass?
I know it's like who cooked here, but like smash. I'm obsessed with like good style and aesthetic.
Right?
Yeah.
Like if it's dirty as all get out,
Yeah.
are you an instant pass?
I mean, I'm not confrontational enough to like leave, but yeah, I'm a pass. I've seen like hair in the sink and it like threw me off. I dated a guy here actually. He was European and like he had like Malin and Goetz and he had the Way products and I was like, whoa. Wow.
Well then,
Okay.
welcome home, honey.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, let's see any other first date crazy ones. What's your most memorable first date experience?
I really think it's like the conversation. And like if they ask me a lot of questions, I mean, I dated someone last summer and we matched on Bumble because he was in town. He lived in Atlanta and he literally was like going to the airport when we matched. And we spent the whole week after he left like FaceTime. He like FaceTimed me and he FaceTimed me every day. And we were like, whoa, we really like each other. He came back the next weekend to LA and we had a really
Wow.
great first date. Yeah.
That's, I'd say.
That was great. Yeah.
Okay. What
Yeah.
happened?
There were a lot
Didn't
of
work
things.
out.
Yeah, there were a lot of things.
At
We
least it
dated-
was a good story.
It was a good story. It was a nice, like, we dated for like 4 months and
Okay.
it just didn't work out, but that was great. If he wanted to, he would. He literally flew back.
For real.
Yeah.
For real.
Yeah.
All right, smash or pass long distance relationships?
I don't hate them. There needs to be a plan. So smash is hard. It's not ideal, but I like it at first. I think that 5 months in, you should know where you guys are going to live. Not for everyone. Everyone's going to disagree with me. I say smash, but I think it's fun because like I like to travel.
I get that.
Yeah.
Going on a reality dating show.
You know, I've gotten like reached out to, and if it were the right one, I would at this point. I talk about my dating life enough. I don't think there's shame in it. Smash.
I feel like you would be very entertaining.
I know the people that reached out to me was like, I want to date a lumberjack, and I was like, I
That's
would
a
be the
thing?
villain. I would be the villain in that show because I would be like, wait, what? What's that? Like I would horrible.
There's so many random dating shows now. Like
I
I,
know.
just saw To Date a Farmer or something.
Yes, so that's a similar vibe. Where like
Okay.
I would be like Paris Hilton and Nicole Richie in The Simple Life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about The Bachelor?
I would. I think my issue with The Bachelor is like they're in like bikinis a lot. And I like with my boss, I'm like, I'm not subjecting myself to like media scrutiny on a national television screen. But I also wouldn't do Love is Blind. So maybe I wouldn't do it.
So you wouldn't do Love is Blind?
No.
Why is that?
I think it's so crazy that you have to get engaged after 2 weeks of not.
Insane.
That's not human. There's no humanity there.
And then they wonder why.
Totally.
A lot of them don't work out.
Totally.
I'm like, maybe they date after.
Yeah.
But like saying they have to get married. Or my
Wild.
favorite part is it's like either you say yes or walk away forever. And I'm like, but what if they just want to date? Like,
Totally. Totally. Literally, go to coffee once. Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Whoever comes up with these concepts, maybe invent your own.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe our dating event will start to be a series.
I like that.
Yeah.
So I like to end all of our episodes with this one question because I know that a lot of women have a tough time saying that they're proud of themselves or hyping themselves up. So what's something in the last week in your personal or professional life that you're proud of yourself for?
that dating event. I worked really hard on it, and there was an amazing turnout. Like 150 people signed up. We had to close RSVPs. Yeah, it was really, really great. And I had DM'd someone at Soho House to get it to happen. And that's how it happened.
You're onto something. Maybe
you.
it's a Soho House membership funded something every state.
Yes.
I don't know.
That's the goal.
I love it. You're like, I'm already on that. I got this. I got this. Don't you worry. All right. Now pimp yourself out for anybody that wants to find you or listen to your podcast.
Yeah. So my podcast is called Pretty Much Done everywhere where you can find your podcast. I'm PMD Pod, POD on Instagram and TikTok.
Amazing. And I will link everything in the show notes. If this episode made an impact on you guys or you know somebody who would love it, please share, follow the More Than Show, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you so much.